Commander Rourke had been on Vigil Station long enough to know that space was rarely quiet for long. Out here, at the edge of mapped territory, the silence was always broken sooner or later by some emergency beacon, some stranded freighter, or some pirate who thought the frontier was easy prey. Still, when the docking alarm howled through the steel corridors at midnight station time, even Rourke was surprised. The sensor officer on duty called him before he could grab his jacket. "Sir, we've got a shuttle drifting in. No ID, no flight. Plan. Hull looks burned. It's coming in hot but not under power." Rourke rubbed his eyes and tried to shake the sleep fog from his head. "Drifting? You mean nobody's flying it?" "Correct, sir. It's just coasting, like it was thrown out of FTL and never recovered." That made Rourke frown. Nothing just coasted in this region of space. If something had been forced out of faster-than-light travel, it usually ended as dust, not a still intact shuttle gliding neatly into their docking bay. By the time he reached the airlock, the station's emergency teams were already in place. Medics stood by with stretchers. Security troops waited with rifles at the ready. The shuttle's surface was blackened with deep plasma scars, as though it had flown through a storm of energy weapons. Rourke stood at the front, arms crossed. "Open it." The engineers cycled the airlock. A hiss of stale, recycled oxygen rolled out, carrying with it the bitter tang of something burnt. Then the inner door slid open. A figure filled the frame. She stumbled forward, her body lean but tall, her skin pale silver under the harsh station lights. Her eyes caught the glow and reflected it back like cold stars. She wore a torn uniform in shades of indigo and black, spattered with dried blood and ash. But what made the medics gasp was not the color of her skin or her uniform. It was her arms. 4 of them, each ending in long, delicate fingers tipped with blunt claws. The alien woman carried something close to her chest. A satchel made of crystal plates bound together by some unknown alloy. It pulsed faintly, as though alive. When she saw Rourke, she stopped in the doorway. Her chest heaved. She looked at him not with fear, but with a strange calm. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, she let the satchel fall. The crash echoed across the deck, sharp as glass on metal. The object shimmered and rolled to a stop at Rourke's boots. The station crew froze, half expecting it to explode, but it only glowed faintly, like a heart still beating. The alien woman met his eyes. Her voice was hoarse but clear. The words were impossible, yet every syllable was in English. "Don't just stare." Rourke's throat tightened. She spoke, his language, not broken, not guessed, fluent. He raised a hand to the medics, stopping them. Instinct told him this was no ordinary refugee. "Who are you?" he asked. Her gaze flickered to the satchel on the ground, then back to his face. For a moment he thought she might collapse, but instead she straightened her shoulders, though blood trickled down her temple. "I crossed half the galaxy," she said. "I have nowhere else to go." The security chief, a broad-shouldered veteran named Marquez, stepped closer. "Commander, this is a threat. We should lock her down immediately. 4 arms, alien tech. Sir, look at that thing she dropped. It could be a bomb." The alien woman gave no reaction to the accusation. Instead, she placed one lower hand against the doorframe to steady herself and used another to wipe the blood from her face. Not a bomb. A warning. Her silver eyes fixed on Rourke again, and something in them made him hesitate. Not fear, not arrogance. Something harder to define. Desperation. "Take her to Med Bay," Rourke said finally. Marquez snapped his head toward him. "Sir, that's an order." Rourke cut him off. His tone left no room for argument. 2 medics stepped forward carefully, hands hovering near their emergency kits. The alien did not resist as they guided her toward a stretcher, though she refused to lie down. She walked instead, her steps uneven but determined. As they passed him, Rourke looked again at the satchel at his feet. The faint pulse within its crystalline shell beat like a living organ. He bent down and picked it up. It was lighter than it looked, yet it thrummed against his palms, as though it recognized being touched. The alien woman glanced back over her shoulder, her 4 hands trembling with exhaustion. "Keep it safe," she murmured. Rourke watched her vanish into the corridor, surrounded by medics and guards. The silence left behind was heavy, broken only by the hum of the station systems. He looked down at the glowing satchel again. Something told him this was the start of something far larger than Vigil Station. And something else told him he had just made a choice that Earth Command would not forgive easily. For the rest of the night, the image stayed with him. A stranger, standing in his doorway, letting everything fall and telling him not to stare. Rourke didn't know who she was. He didn't know what hunted her or what this crystal satchel contained. But he knew one thing. The galaxy had just knocked on his door, and he had opened it. The medbay of Vigil Station was quiet except for the hum of machines and the soft beep of monitors. Commander Rourke stood with his arms crossed, watching the alien woman sit on the edge of a medical cot. She had refused to lie down, insisting that she was not a patient, but a messenger. Dr. Leon, the station's chief medical officer, had done what she could. The woman's wounds were not simple cuts. Her skin was marked by burns and deep bruises, signs of plasma strikes and violent pressure changes. Somehow, she had survived conditions that would have killed a human. "I sealed the injuries," Leon whispered to Rourke. "But her biology is complex. I've never seen anything like it. She heals faster than us, yet the damage goes deeper. If she doesn't rest, she'll collapse." Rourke nodded but kept his eyes on the woman. She sat straight-backed, her silver eyes following his every move. 2 of her hands rested in her lap, while the other 2 gripped the cot, knuckles pale. "Do you have a name?" he asked finally. The woman tilted her head slightly as if tasting the question. Then she said, "Kalen." The syllables rolled smoothly, not harsh, not mechanical. She spoke with the same fluency she had shown at the airlock. "Kalen," Rourke repeated. "And where are you from?" Her eyes darkened. "From a place I will never return to, from a people who will not forgive me." Rourke glanced at the satchel resting on the nearby table. Its faint glow had not dimmed. "And that?" Kalen's gaze followed his. A flicker of something, fear, regret, or perhaps duty, crossed her face. "That is why I came here. Why, I risked everything. You must keep it safe. More than that, you must understand it." Marquez stood by the door, arms folded, his suspicion plain. "Commander, this is a mistake. That thing is alien tech. For all we know, it's a tracking beacon. The longer we keep her and that box on station, the bigger the target painted on our backs." Kalen turned her head slowly toward him. "If the Dominion is already hunting me, then your target is painted regardless. But if you know what is inside, you will have a weapon. A chance." Rourke caught the word immediately. "The Dominion?" Her 4 hands tightened against the cot. "Yes, you've heard the name, haven't you?" The room went silent. Even Marquez's voice faltered. Everyone on the frontier had heard rumors. Whispers of an empire hidden beyond the Persid Veil, a force vast enough to make the oldest human admirals nervous. But the Dominion was a ghost story, the kind of enemy governments use to justify more ships and bigger fleets. "You're telling me the Dominion is real," Rourke said. Kalen gave a faint, humorless smile, "All too real, and I was one of them." Rourke's breath caught. He had expected many things, refugee, soldier, spy, but not this. "One of them? Then why are you here?" "Because I broke," she said simply. "The Dominion forges us from birth. Our minds are chained to obedience, our bodies are shaped for war. We do not question, we do not refuse. But something inside me snapped. For the first time I saw the chains. And once I saw them, I could not close my eyes again." Her voice grew softer, almost a whisper. "I stole that satchel. It holds maps of fleet positions, weapon designs, codes of command. But more than that, it holds their flaw, the weak thread in the chain." Rourke stepped closer to the table. "You're saying this could help us fight them?" Kalen met his gaze. "I am saying this is the only chance you have to survive them." Marquez let out a sharp breath. "Sir, this is madness. She admits she's one of them. For all we know, she's feeding us a story, planting bait. How convenient that she just happened to find her way to our station. Kaylin's silver eyes did not leave Rourke's face. You doubt me, soldier, that is wise. But ask yourself this. Would I crawl into your hands half dead, hunted, bleeding, if I still served them? No. I would have destroyed you already, the Bao. Words hung heavy in the room. Rourke looked at the satchel again. Its glow pulsed like a heartbeat, steady, patient, waiting. Something in his gut told him Kaylin was no liar. Too much pain was etched into her every word, every movement. What do you want from us? He asked finally. Kaylin inhaled deeply. I want a chance. To show that freedom is not a lie. To warn your people before the Dominion's fleets arrive. I chose humans because you are the only ones who resist chains. I read your transmissions, your histories, your wars. You break what others accept. You fight even when logic says surrender. That is why I came. For a long moment, no one spoke. The hum of the medbay machine seemed louder than ever. Rourke felt the weight of command pressing on his shoulders. If he trusted her, Life aboard Vigil Station changed the moment Kaylin arrived. The crew carried out their duties as usual. Repairs, patrols, cargo checks. But beneath every action was tension. The story of a Dominion defector could not be kept quiet for long. Whispers spread like wildfire through the steel corridors. She speaks English. She has 4 arms. She says war is coming. Commander Rourke did not confirm the rumors, but he didn't deny them either. He spent long hours in the secure lab with Kaylin studying the crystalline satchel she had brought. The satchel was unlike anything human science had ever seen. Its plates of transparent crystal shifted when touched as though alive. They revealed star maps, streams of symbols, and images of massive ships bristling with weapons. Kaylin guided them patiently, showing which marks represented fleets, which indicated command centers, and which described the Dominion's vast lines of supply. At first, Rourke only half believed her. But as the data took shape, the truth became undeniable. Dominion fleets were massing beyond the Perseid Veil. Dozens of battle groups, each larger than Earth's entire frontier navy, were being positioned like claws closing in on prey. They are preparing, Kaylin said one night as she stood beside the glowing maps. Not tomorrow, not next year, soon. Rourke rubbed his temples, staring at the spreading lines of red that marked enemy fleets. Why wait? Why gather so much before striking? Because the Dominion never fights small wars, Kaylin answered. They believe in crushing force, to strike once and leave nothing standing. When they move, humanity will not have time to answer. The words chilled him. He thought of Earth, of the colonies scattered like fragile seeds across the stars, of families who trusted the Navy to keep them safe. Against fleets like these, safety would be an illusion. But Kaylin did not only bring fear, she also brought strange fascination. During the quiet hours when they paused from decoding the satchel, she asked questions about humans. At first they were simple. What was bread? Why did humans sing? Why did they waste time writing words that were not orders or commands? Then the questions grew sharper. Why do your people fight each other when there are enemies beyond your stars? Why do you disobey your leaders even when it weakens you? Why? Do you value choice, even when choice leads to pain? Rourke tried to answer as best he could. Because without choice, life isn't really living. Because sometimes the right to say no is worth more than safety. Kaylin considered his words carefully, as though storing them like treasures. Her silver eyes often lingered on him, filled with something between curiosity and envy. For the first time, she admitted something quietly. My people cannot understand rebellion. We are shaped to obey. But you break your own chains, even when no one puts them on you. That is why I came. I hoped it might not be madness to believe in freedom. Rourke said nothing, but her words struck deep. Outside the lab, the station grew uneasy. Strange signals flickered at the edge of their sensors, bursts of static, shadows that vanished when scanned directly. Marquez reported possible cloaked vessels nearby. The crew grew restless, knowing something unseen was circling them. Rourke called a meeting of his senior officers. Around the table, the tension was thick. "We can't keep this up," Marquez said firmly. "If the Dominion knows she's here, they'll come knocking, and we don't have the firepower to hold them back." Dr. Leon shook her head. "And if we throw her out, we may be discarding the only chance humanity has to understand what's coming. She's carrying knowledge no one else can give us." Rourke listened, then looked at Kaylin, who stood silently at the far end of the table. She met his gaze unflinching. Finally, he said, "We prepare, quietly. We send word to Earth Command, but not everything. Not yet. If the Dominion is watching, we can't reveal our hand." Kaylin inclined her head in agreement. "If you move too soon, they will know you are warned, and then they will strike before you are ready." After the meeting, Rourke walked with her through the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, cold and silent. "You risked everything to come here," he said. "But why me? Why this station? You could have gone anywhere." Kaylin stood with her 4 hands resting on the railing. "Because humans tell stories. Across the void, your transmissions reach even Dominion ears. I heard your plays, your songs, your tales of rebellion. I thought, if anyone could hear me, it would be the people who sing about defiance." She turned to him then, her expression almost soft. "And I was right. You listened." For a moment, the silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken truths. Rourke wanted to deny it, to say he had no choice, but deep down, he knew he had chosen to believe her. The silence did not last long. The comm system chimed, sharp and urgent. "Commander," the voice of the sensor officer crackled. "We're picking up something new. Multiple signals, moving in formation. They're not broadcasting IDs." Rourke's blood ran cold. He turned to Kaylin. She already knew. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw set. "They've found me," she said, quietly. The alarms began to ring across Vigil Station. The silence before war had ended. The alarm sirens echoed through Vigil Station, their deep tones vibrating through the steel walls. Crew members ran through the corridors, strapping on gear and taking their positions. The ordinary hum of the outpost was gone, replaced by the sharp rhythm of readiness. Commander Rourke stood on the command deck, eyes fixed on the star field projected across the main screen. Small points of light flickered at the edge of sensor range, moving with unnatural precision. They were not trade ships, not explorers, not pirates. "They're in formation," said the sensor officer, her voice tight. "At least 3 ships, stealth class, bigger than anything we've logged this close to the Veil." Marquez slammed a fist against the railing. "They're Dominion hunters. They found us." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Dominion had always been a shadow, a rumor. Now the shadow had teeth, and it was here. Rourke straightened his shoulders. "Raise shields. Bring weapons online, but don't fire until I give the order. We don't show weakness, but we don't start the—" Well, either. At his side, Kaylin stood silent, her silver eyes watching the screen. Unlike the human crew, she did not panic. Her expression was grim, but calm, as if she had known this moment would come. "They will demand me," she said quietly. "They will not leave until they have me. That is their way." Rourke turned to her. "Then we make sure they leave empty-handed." The station shook as the Dominion ships slipped closer, their dark hulls shaped like curved blades. Even in silence, they radiated menace. A comm signal cut through the static, cold and mechanical. "This is the Dominion vessel Krythos. You harbor a fugitive asset. Surrender the traitor and her property immediately, or be destroyed." The words rolled across the deck like a death sentence. The crew froze, waiting for Rourke's answer. He leaned toward the comm mic. His voice was steady. "This is Commander Rourke of Vigil Station, property of the United Earth Frontier Fleet. You're trespassing in human space. You will withdraw at once." A pause followed, heavy and dangerous. Then the reply came, sharp as broken glass. "You misunderstand, human. You are alive only because we allow it. We will not ask again. Before Rourke could answer, Kaelin stepped forward. She raised all four of her hands, her voice cutting through the tension. "Dominion vessel," she said. "I am Kaelin, once of your fleet. I will not return. I am free." The comm crackled. For a moment there was silence. Then a new voice, colder than before, filled the air. "Kaelin, you are broken. You will be unmade. And those who shelter, you will share your fate." The channel cut. "Brace!" Marquez shouted. The first volley slammed into Vigil Station's shields. The command deck trembled, lights flickering. Engineers shouted damage reports through the comm lines. "Shields. Holding!" the tactical officer cried. "But they're testing us." That wasn't full power. Rourke's jaw clenched. "They're playing with us. They want us scared before they tear us apart." Kaelin's hands gripped the railing, her knuckles pale. "They will board you. It is their way. They will take me by force." As if on cue, the sensor officer called out, "Incoming signatures, boarding craft launched." Small, sharp vessels detached from the Dominion cruisers, streaking toward the outpost like daggers. They hit the docking rings with bone-shaking force. Warning lights flared red. "Security teams, to the docks," Rourke ordered. The battle for Vigil Station had begun. The corridors filled with smoke and the echo of boots. Human soldiers rushed to defensive lines, rifles raised. The Dominion breached the airlocks with violent bursts of energy, cutting through steel like paper. Then the boarders came. They were tall, their bodies armored in black plates that gleamed faintly. Each one carried weapons grown from their own flesh, strange and organic. Their faces were hidden by masks with glowing eyes. They moved with terrifying coordination, not a step wasted. But the humans did not back down. Marquez led the first squad, shouting over the chaos, "Hold the line, make them bleed for every step." Gunfire roared. Plasma bolts tore the air. Sparks and smoke filled the docking ring. The Dominion soldiers advanced without hesitation, until Kaelin stepped into the fight. She moved like a storm. Her 4 arms wielded captured Dominion blades, each strike precise and merciless. Her movements were not human, not even close. She fought with the cold grace of someone born and shaped for battle. The soldiers faltered for a moment, stunned by the S. The satchel lay on the deck between Commander Rourke and Kaelin, glowing brighter with every passing second. Its crystalline plates shifted like moving water, alive with energy. Around them, the docking bay roared with battle, gunfire, plasma, strikes, and the shouts of soldiers echoing through smoke and steel. Rourke's hands trembled as he reached for the satchel. Kaelin's 4 hands steadied his, her touch firm despite the blood streaking her arms. "You must decide," she said, her voice sharp with urgency. "Open it fully, and the signal will spread. Their chains will break." "And if it doesn't?" Rourke asked, his eyes searching hers. "Then we fall here," Kaelin answered simply. The Dominion soldiers pressed forward, their black armor gleaming in the firelight. They moved with mechanical precision, firing and advancing, never hesitating, never questioning. Human defenders were being pushed back step by step. Marquez's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, we can't hold much longer." Rourke gritted his teeth. "Kaelin, if we break their chains, and what happens to them? Do they turn on each other? Do they die?" Her silver eyes flickered. For the first time, he saw uncertainty in her. "I don't know. No one has ever dared. But I know this. The Dominion survives only because of obedience. Remove it and they will have to choose. They will be free." "Free," Rourke repeated. His heart pounded. "And what if freedom makes them worse? What if they decide they'd rather burn us down anyway?" Kaelin's voice softened, though the battle raged around them. "Then you will have shown them something no one else ever has, the chance to decide. That is more than chains will ever allow." Rourke stared at her, at the determination in her eyes. She was right. The Dominion's strength was in its control. Humanity's strength was in defiance. If he wanted to prove Kaelin had chosen the right people to trust, he had to act like it. He pressed his palms against the satchel. The crystal flared, flooding the bay with light. Soldiers, human and Dominion alike, stumbled as the glow spread through the air like a wave. The Dominion boarders froze mid-step, their weapons raised but their movements halted. Their glowing helmets flickered as though something inside them had cracked. Kalen shouted over the rising hum. "It's working. The obedience code. It's unraveling." The Dominion soldiers staggered, clutching at their helmets, their armor, their weapons. Some cried out in harsh guttural voices that no one on the station had ever heard before. Others dropped their guns, staring at their own hands in confusion, as though seeing them for the first time. Marquez blinked, lowering his rifle. "What the hell is happening?" Rourke didn't answer. He watched as the unstoppable tide of enemies dissolved into chaos. The boarders no longer moved as one. Their perfect precision shattered. Some backed away. Others sank to their knees, shaking. Then one of them, the tallest among them, ripped off his mask. His face was pale like Kalen's, his eyes glowing faint silver. He looked around wildly, his expression torn between terror and wonder. The word was broken, the voice unsure. "I can think?" Kalen stepped forward, her bloodied, arms spread in a gesture of peace. "Yes, you can. You are no longer theirs. You are yours." The soldier's weapon clattered to the ground. He turned to the others. Some followed, removing masks, staring at each other like strangers meeting for the first time. Others stood frozen, unwilling or unable to let go. Not all accepted freedom easily. A group at the rear shouted in their harsh Dominion tongue, raising their weapons again. They fired blindly, desperate to cling to the only way of life they knew. But the others, the newly freed, turned on them. The battle twisted into something new. Dominion soldiers fought Dominion soldiers, confusion and rage colliding with newfound clarity. Humans watched, stunned, as their enemies began to tear themselves apart. Marquez stepped closer to Rourke, eyes wide. "Sir, you broke them." "No," Rourke said, his gaze fixed on Kalen. "We freed them." Kalen's chest heaved with exhaustion, but her eyes shone with fierce triumph. "It has begun. The chain is broken." The Dominion boarding craft, still docked, erupted with similar chaos. Through the comm channels came scattered voices, shouting, questioning, rebelling. Reports poured in from across the station. Dominion. Crews were no longer moving as one. Some ships were falling silent altogether. Then the Kratos, the Dominion cruiser in orbit, opened comms again. The cold mechanical voice was gone. In its place came a raw, trembling voice, confused and angry. What have you done? We are not one anymore. We are." The signal cut into static. Rourke straightened, breathing hard. "They're fractured. They don't know how to fight without control." The human defenders seized the moment. With renewed strength, they pushed the remaining hostile soldiers back, reclaiming ground. The Dominion's iron grip had been loosened, and in its place was chaos. Kalen swayed, nearly collapsing. Rourke caught her, steadying her against his shoulder. "You did it." Her voice was barely a whisper. "No, we did it." Humanity proved itself. Around them, the sounds of battle faded. The surviving Dominion soldiers, those who had accepted freedom, stood uncertain, weapons lowered, staring at the humans with wide, questioning eyes. The others, still clinging to obedience, were either captured or fled back to their craft. For the first time in Dominion history, their soldiers had disobeyed. For the first time, they had chosen. Rourke knew the war was not over. If anything, it was only beginning. The Dominion would never forgive what had happened here, but something far greater had been born in this moment. A crack in an empire that had believed itself unbreakable, and humanity had been the hammer that struck it. Kalen looked at him, her silver eyes filled with both exhaustion and hope. "Now, the galaxy will change, but the choice is theirs. And yours." Rourke tightened his grip on her shoulder, his voice firm. "Then we'll make sure they see what freedom really means." The bay was littered with smoke, sparks, and silence, but beneath it all, Rourke felt the ground shift. The tide of history had turned. The docking bay of Vigil Station lay in ruins. Smoke curled from broken panels, sparks flickered from damaged walls, and the air still carried the bitter tang of plasma fire. Human soldiers moved cautiously among the fallen, securing prisoners and tending to their wounded. But the strangest sight was not the wreckage. It was the Dominion soldiers, those who had dropped their weapons, torn off their masks, and now stood, in small clusters, staring at each other with wide, confused eyes. For the first time in their lives, they were not bound by orders. They shifted nervously as if afraid of their own freedom. Commander Rourke walked through the wreckage, Kaylin at his side. She leaned heavily on him, her 4 arms trembling from exhaustion, her silver eyes still sharp despite the blood and bruises marking her skin. Everywhere they passed, humans and freed Dominion soldiers alike turned to look at her, some with suspicion, others with awe. Marquez hurried over, helmet tucked under his arm. "Commander, the hunters are pulling back. Their boarding craft are retreating. The cruiser's systems are unstable. We're picking up signals of infighting on board." Rourke gave a short nod. "They're unraveling." Marquez's expression was grim. "Yes, but sir, what happens next? We've just torn a hole in their empire. They won't ignore this. They'll send more." Rourke glanced at Kaylin. She said nothing at first, only staring at the clusters of freed Dominion soldiers. Finally she spoke, her voice low but steady. "They cannot go back. Once a mind has tasted choice, the chain cannot be restored. The Dominion will fear this more than any weapon. That fear will drive them." Her words were both warning and promise. Later in the command deck, Rourke stood before the glowing star maps pulled from the satchel. They no longer looked like lines of doom closing around humanity. They looked fragile, imperfect, vulnerable. Cracks had appeared in the enemy's armor. Kaylin joined him, moving slower now, but still carrying herself with dignity. "This is only the beginning," she said. "What you did here will echo. Across fleets, across worlds. Others will question. Others will break free." Rourke studied her, his jaw tight. "Or they'll come for us with everything they have, to crush the idea before it spreads." Kaylin's silver eyes turned to him. "Both can be true, but either way you have changed the course of the galaxy." He looked at her for a long moment. "Not me. Us. You brought the spark. We only struck the match." For the first time since she arrived, Kaylin allowed herself a small, tired smile. News traveled fast, even across the vastness of space. Within days, signals began leaking from the Veil. Confused reports of Dominion fleets halting mid-maneuver, of soldiers refusing orders, of commanders executing their own subordinates in futile attempts to restore control. Earth Command demanded answers from Vigil Station. Rourke gave them fragments, careful not to reveal everything. He knew they would argue over what to do, study Kaylin, weaponize the satchel, or bury the truth to avoid panic. But none of that mattered now. The galaxy had shifted. Humanity had become more than a small frontier species struggling to survive. They had become a symbol. Kaylin spent her recovery walking the station, speaking with both humans and the freed Dominion soldiers who had chosen not to leave. Some looked at her with distrust, but others began to listen. She told them simple truths that chains could break, that obedience was not destiny, that choice was worth the pain it carried. One night, F.